It'd be nice if I turn on my microphone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bandersnatch theories video. Let me just turn up the volume a little bit here so we could get a nice crispy feed coming up. Hello, everyone. I trust that if you are watching this stream, you've already watched Bandersnatch or have at least gone through one of, you've gotten to one of the endings, or two or three, or maybe you've got them all. But this video is all about sort of deconstructing, deep diving. I have the chat up in the window, so you could leave your comments or questions or theories in the chat, and it'll come up over here. Hopefully it all works fine. But I'm really excited to do this video. The past 2 days, I guess yesterday, it was just yesterday. I've already gone through so many waves and motions discussing and rewatching this show. So I thought it's time to do a theory video, and let's get into it. So I think I got all 5 endings. And this video isn't really about the endings. It's not about what the endings are or what all the it's more about the sort of ideas behind what this is, or theories. So I think at its core, it's really, Bandersnatch is all about our control over the decisions we make. Do we really have control over decisions? Are they is somebody else calling the shots? Is free will a real thing? And at its core, that's sort of the question that it poses. And the way Bandersnatch goes about it this episode is that most of the time it seems like we don't. It seems like choices are already either somebody else is making them, as we were, or they've been predetermined by something else, somebody else, whatever. So there were, at some level we were making choices, and at another level somebody gave us the choices to make. So you could just sort of deep dive that way, and going down the rabbit hole is obviously another big sort of thing, just sort of going deep into this theory thing or weird ideas. Bandersnatch is from the Through the Looking Glass. It's a creature Lewis Carroll made up. So there's a lot of sort of Through the Looking Glass references, literal glass going through glass mirrors. And the Bandersnatch, which you see in one of the routes you take during the show, and it's called I guess it's Pax the Lion. They reference it as, but Bandersnatch kind of looks like a lion, and but also a monster. But the actual thing itself is not. I guess it's of some importance for the cultural reference and what it meant in Through the Looking Glass, which I have not read in a very long time, so I can't really pull references or ideas from that. Hello, everybody that's tuning in. Kirsten says it's a little like D&D in the 1980s. Totally, choose your own adventure, and choose your own adventure is coming to some sort of popularity. Not too much. I don't know if it's as successful now as it maybe was back then. There was Telltale Games, which was the sort of choose your own adventure video game company that was sort of around, but they recently, I think, just went out of business. So I guess they weren't doing as well as, maybe they should have been, or I don't know. But this seems to be just sort of a whole other thing in a universe that's already kind of set up and laid out for us with ideas and concepts they could just play around with. Walton says the episode examines the obsession of consumers on choices and customization provided by companies and services which are all an illusion of choice. That's a good way to boil it down. It hits on a lot of things, but that's definitely one of them. You could go sort of the capitalistic route and say, all the choices that we're making, somebody else already made these choices to get them to this point. But then you sort of have to go with the idea of what the concept of choice is, I guess. Everything past, like present and future, decides what the choice you're gonna make is. So you might be thinking like you're making a choice in the moment, but your life experience up to that point and where you want to go from the present onward is really dictating the choice you make. So you're not sort of actively choosing something. You just gotten to a place where this is the thing that you want to do or you want to proceed with, whatever. All your life experiences come to the point where you would go down this certain path rather than this one. So, you could go sort of a couple different philosophical or theoretical routes with it, with the sort of the concept of choice. I guess you could say, somebody else is calling the shots for us. You could say that choice doesn't really even exist. Like, it's just sort of an amalgamation or a reaction or result of experience and life itself and where you were and where you want to go, and it kind of that calls the shots. So you were always going to choose this thing if you went down this route, kind of thing, obviously. This is the thing. Is the choice? That's another question. Is the choice made in the moment? I honestly, I personally don't think so. I think it is the choices you make are a result of the choices you made, kind of thing. Which also is a big, sort of point in Bandersnatch. It's kind of the choices dictate other choices. And that's why he gets to go back and like you can make different choices, and you're in this kind of just loop. So it's almost better that there's sort of an idea that it's better that you don't have many choices. I was actually playing Red Dead Redemption 1, the original, and pretty apropos, John Marston says something about a man with too many choices. Somebody with too many choices can get angry by like all these choices. What was it? There was an exact quote. I think I wrote it somewhere because I thought it was just so timely. I said, "Give a man too many." He said, "Give a man too many options, and it'll make him unhappy," which I thought was really funny, apropos. Especially after watching all this. So it is true. The other question you have to ask yourself is, do we want to have the choice, or do we want choices to be made for us? Because, a lot of people, feel less pressure or less anxiety if things are sort of laid out for them and, dictated to them, and so that they don't have the anxiety or pressure of making decisions themselves, which is, a whole other thing. So was us making the decisions for Stefan helping him, or was it easing his anxiety? And it seemed like in some of the versions it was, and in some of them he was sort of upset that he was being controlled and he wasn't in control and whatnot. Wilton said, and they go on to prove by having the viewers choose paths while there was only a small number of choices, all determined by the writer, who you kind of see in one of the versions, one of the endings. You see the person kind of putting together the show. Wilton says, "I read not long ago that your mind shows all the signals of making a choice 10 seconds before you're actually aware of the choice." That's the thing. I think choice is sort of, it is an illusion. But that's because it's sort of a construct, like time. It's just kind of a name we give the thing because we don't know what else to call it. So it's playing with the Bandersnatch plays with the idea of choice, but the idea of choice is just a weird concept in the first place because it is sort of a result rather than a decision. I'd say it's probably one of the simpler ways to put it. So choice is a result rather than an actual decision. And I guess decision and choice are the same thing, but that's just how I chose to phrase it. But if we're going a little bit deeper into what Bandersnatch is, for those of you that have seen previous episodes of Black Mirror, or previous 2 seasons ago, one of the sort of standout episodes was San Junipero. And just a little refresher, San Junipero is the one with the elderly couple or sort of sick or elderly people, or people that are just, reaching the end. Get to choose to have their consciousness uploaded to this database, this mainframe, this hard drive. And so they basically, their subconscious lives in this hard drive. And so we could sort of, the idea is that the sort of theory I have is that this Bandersnatch thing, it might be sort of the name of this protocol or this maybe software within that San Junipero system where basically this is just another level of that sort of digital reality or sort of a subspace of that reality of the San Junipero system because of all the sort of there's references to other Black Mirror episodes, but I feel like San Junipero and this whole idea of uploading consciousness to a cloud or to a database is sort of prevalent the last 2 or 3 seasons of Black Mirror, and it seems to be they're just playing in this space for a while, which makes me think that maybe Bandersnatch or Stefan and other characters are in a simulation in this sort of San Junipero space. Wilton says there's an actual Bandersnatch game that was never released. The game was never finished, but appears in a documentary. Interesting. See, I didn't know that. But something that makes me think that Stefan might be in sort of a digital hell, where things just keep sort of replaying, very similar to the White Bear episode where the woman is basically being punished repeatedly for a crime she committed by being on this sort of reality show where she's just being watched and basically tormented by these people, this group of people, this collective constantly. So White Bear, obviously, and Bandersnatch have a lot of similarities. The symbol of choice, like the 2 decisions we make, the line with the 2 other sort of branching off lines. So it's just like this never-ending hell loop. We have endings, but it's just sort of, you can just go back and restart, and it leads to sort of bigger other concepts, sort of super meta concepts. But I think what makes me think that Stefan is in some sort of hell, maybe he was uploaded into some sort of hellscape, program, software, because of what Colin says about Pac-Man and how Pac-Man is just, it seems like a happy game, but he can never really escape these ghosts, these like sort of monsters, which, everybody else in Bandersnatch was sort of, they're sort of specters almost, or they're kind of just there for him. So this whole thing of Pac-Man just being sort of trapped in his own world, his own nightmare world, is interesting, and I think plays a bigger part maybe in what Bandersnatch is, or Stefan's world is, which I think is almost sort of like a digital hellscape, sort of in the form of a choose-your-own-adventure video game. Where he's basically just like White Bear. He's the kind of dictating. You're dictating what, or watching this guy's life play out, his torment or his anger, his rage, his sad, like everything just play out repeatedly, and you're making decisions to make it more horrific or less horrific. You're really choosing what his existence is going to be into perpetuity. This is just his never-ending Pac-Man hell, which is weird to say. But that's sort of what I think is happening. I think this is part of the sort of San Junipero system of sort of like the cloud living thing, but maybe he was a criminal, and instead of sort of corporal justice sort of today, where they would give somebody the electric chair, or put a needle in them to off them, they'll upload them to like this eternal damnation in this like never-ending hellscape, where they're basically just you could use the internet to control what this person's endless hell existence is going to be, and you can make the choices for them. So that's sort of my idea of what is happening with this. I mean, there's a lot of layers. There's time theories. There's a lot of sort of you could go with multiple dimensions or stuff like that. But I think it's not. I think it's just sort of just a loop. He's in this weird computer loop because maybe he was I don't know. He was maybe he actually did murder his parents in reality. I think part of it is set in some sort of his reality, but I don't know which ending or which route was his actual real route that he had to relive, or you made him relive. But I do think maybe he was an actual game designer. He lost it a lot like the original Bandersnatch writer did, and or maybe this is the original creator of Bandersnatch, just kind of like reincarnated or rebodied into this kid. I don't know. That might be a little bit too far off the path, but Wilton says they would require systems to be expanded and coders kept on increasing. The requirements of the company shut down and the games had to be canceled. Wow. See, I didn't know this. Thank you. Kirsten said Pax the Demon is the thief of dentistry. Is that the Pax? Let me look that up. Is the thief of dentistry? Am I reading that right? Dentistry? Wilton says the loop they are showing is perhaps an examination of gaming culture, most especially the retro gaming. I mean, yeah, I think it's the thing is it brings up a lot of interesting concepts. So like you could just theorize almost all day about, and you're not necessarily, nobody's necessarily wrong. Pax is Pax. Well, yeah, there's Pax like the actual monster. Then there's the person and control. Am I remembering that right? Let's see. There's a ton of articles that have come up since yesterday of people just dissecting it. Let me see. Programming control, excuse me, not people in control. I'm looking up stuff about PAX, but maybe I missed something. Also, drugs are a big thing in this movie. I mean, he's taking sort of drugs to calm him down, or maybe antidepressant medication. At least that's what you think at first, maybe, and then it seems like he's taking some sort of psycho meds that he's been given since basically he was a child to, make him go insane, which is I guess, I don't know, it's strange. You don't really know why they want to make him go insane besides this experiment, which you don't really understand a lot about, just to, I guess, control people. It's a way to see if they can do it, I guess. I wasn't really sold on that the drug thing. Although when Colin if you refuse to take the drug from Colin, he spikes your drink anyway. So you're from that point on, from that dream sequence on, he's high, I guess, or he's being swayed by this drug, which I don't know what the drug is. It's obviously some sort of psychotropic thing that causes him to just, I don't know, go nuts. Computer program is in basically just zeros and ones, yes or no. Exactly. It's just like, if you know, we are living in a simulation, or something designed sort of the same way, or, you know, very, you know, all of this could be ones and zeros. It's reality is subjective, I guess. It's whatever this is reality. Reality's a thing and not a thing, and, you know, all that noise. Well, I'm gonna just reread what Wilton said about the loop they are showing is perhaps an examination of gaming culture, most especially the retro gaming. Well, I think Choose Your Own Adventure hasn't really gone away. I played Choose Your Own Adventures like in the 90s. There was like something similar. I had a Power Rangers game for Sega CD, and it was basically a Choose Your Own Adventure. It'd be like the episode would play out, an episode that already came on. It was a little weird. It wasn't great. It was an episode that I had seen, but you press the buttons to initiate some sort of action, and if you do the wrong thing, you could die, or you go on another sort of route. But it's never, Choose Your Own Adventures have been going on, I believe, since the 70s or the 80s at least, if not before. But they've always been fun. This is cool because it is a sort of a retro thing. I'm sure a lot of people haven't played a Choose Your Own Adventure in a while. Wilton says the stories don't matter much. They are a mix of stories. The main theme permeates all the different realities. Yeah, I completely agree. The stories themselves are sort of, I mean, if you looked at the story itself, it's just basically this computer programmer, this kid. I mean, I guess he's in his 20s, but this computer program is, you know, he's in the 80s doing drugs, trying to make this video game based off this fantasy sci-fi novel. And, you know, he gets into drugs and he goes a little crazy, and that's pretty much it. And he has mommy issues and he has daddy issues and he has issues. Like, it's nothing that like the story itself, and the characters are characters we've seen in stuff from the 80s and 90s. Like, it's nothing super new. It's just the way that it was presented and manipulated, I guess, which made it really cool to sort of experience and deal with. What was interesting is sort of the subversion of the choice idea. Sometimes throughout the whole thing, like the whole thing is about making choices or not making choices, and you having him not having control, you not having much control or choice either. But then there's moments, and I can only think of one. I think there's more, but there's one particular moment where Colin is going to hand him the sort of the pot cigarette, the weed cigarette, and his hand kind of just lingers there, and you expect the little bar to come up so you could choose if he smokes it or not, and nothing comes up, and he just, you know, he lingers there, so it's like you expect like the choice to happen, and he holds out the cigarette, and nothing happens, and Stefan decides to take the cigarette anyway. So it's really interesting because at some points they work up to, you're gonna make this decision for him now, but then they don't give you the option to make the decision at all. So it's really interesting, and you could sort of say, sure, they didn't give you the decision, somebody else made the decision not to give you a decision, or you could say Stefan made the decision, you know, independently. So then you have the sort of the idea that maybe not all the choices are predetermined. Maybe the large majority of the choices we make are predetermined, but there are some that are a little bit spontaneous too, I guess. Again, there's no sort of set rule. It's sort of just sort of conceptual stuff, and you could decide which way you want to go with it. It's super interesting. I love talking about this kind of stuff. Wilton said the British bedroom coders from the 80s were typically in their 16s. Yeah, I mean, I feel like he wasn't really going to school. I don't know if it was summer or something. He looked maybe like he was just maybe in his early 20s or something. I don't know. He was still living at home, which is, I mean, so am I, but it's not a big deal. But I don't know. I could go on about this forever. But I think it does take place in sort of the broader Black Mirror universe. I think Stefan is in one of sort of the sub-routines or programs, whatever. Along with everything else. I guess technically you could say that all of the Black Mirror episodes are happening within technology itself. That you could just go way down the rabbit hole and say everything is deeper and deeper into a next level simulation, which is I forgot who I was reading, but there's theories that this is already happening once we reach perfection in a simulation, which I feel like we're getting aggressively close to. It's just a deeper. The hole just goes deeper and deeper. Even if we're living in a simulation created by somebody else, a god-like character, they might be living in a simulation as well, and so on and so forth into infinity, and then you go into multiple dimensions, which is veers off from decision. I mean, if you ever watched the episode of Community, which I think is a good sort of entry level to parallel dimensions or alternate realities, where they roll a dice and each roll creates a whole new timeline and splits things off. So that's happening all the time simultaneously. Every word I choose is probably creating a separate timeline. I might say something else in a different timeline. It's never ending. It's infinite. If those theories are true. And then also you could go with the theory of time, which also Colin brought up in Black Mirror, which it is a construct. It is not a linear thing. You could go back and forth, or you could say all time is happening simultaneously. So he's killing his father with the ashtray while he's also asleep in bed, and also at the gaming like it's just all happening at once. Kirsten said, "I feel so sad for Stefan. He is like an innocent in hell." But this is the thing. I'm wondering if maybe Stefan or whoever Stefan was before ending up in this sort of loop, this like hellscape loop. I wonder if he was maybe some sort of criminal, or if he's stuck in his own, like somebody else. I mean, it seems like through one of the endings, you have one of the writers of the episode sort of figuring out how Stefan's life is going to go. The person that made his decisions, she decided to put him in this hell. But then she ends up being part of the game as well. So just like it's always, you go step backward further. They think this is the real world. She's making the episode, and then you take a step back, and she's also in it. And some people I was talking to think it's just like almost like a Jumanji thing, like it almost infects the person that's doing it. But it's like, no, you're just kind of breaking the fourth wall a little bit. But every time you do that, then it's like it goes further back, and it just like never ends. Mullen said maybe we were designed to think we own our decisions. I'm sorry, or maybe we're programmed ourselves like. I mean, it's the whole thing of like what decisions are. Decisions are, like I said before, I think decisions or choices are a result rather than sort of an active thing that we do. It is just a result of our experience in our lives and what we've done to get to this point to make a choice, or something maybe in the air that chooses, maybe you want chicken instead of the fish, like that kind of thing. Maybe you had like fish, like maybe you saw something that made you want chicken instead of fish. It's just like, a lot of things are just out of your control, and they're sort of the way your brain works. It's just sort of swaying you to do one thing or the other, and you might have had fish the day before or something, so you're gonna have chicken today. It's like stuff like that. I don't know. It makes you. I think people get sort of fixated on am I in control of my own life thing, and it's like yes to a point, but it's almost like history. Your history has more control over you than the present version of you, which is a little unnerving, but it's interesting. Kirsten Frostholm says the other Black Mirror is in our near future, but here we are in the future for the person in the episode. Yeah, see, he's somebody from the future that's on Netflix is controlling me. But then there's also that one where they break the fourth wall when you're gonna fight with his therapist, and he goes to jump out the window, and they're like, hey, that's not in the script, which I thought was hysterical. And he's like, what? And he's like in a show. So he's in a show in one of the endings, and then another one of the endings he's being filmed. So it's sort of like a Truman Show kind of thing at one point, but then also not. And then it's like, are we all in a Truman Show kind of thing? And then we're discussing this, and it's like it's just madness. And this is the whole going down the rabbit hole causes madness. This is like the Cthulhu like scale madness where you're way in too deep. Wolton said, I couldn't help but think that Twin Peaks had something to do with this episode. I mean, again, this is like sort of like Twin Peaks came out in the 90s. I mean, recently, now over a year ago, The Return came out. And it definitely influenced things like Black Mirror, where it's almost just surreal, dealing with fragmented reality and the unreality and like just stuff like that. And I think Twin Peaks was one of the first shows to do it, besides like Twilight Zone, which obviously Black Mirror is heavily like it is basically Twilight Zone. But then you have sort of a lot of the mechanics Lynch introduced with Twin Peaks and sort of just bizarre realities and playing with time, not just going back in time, which is what they used to do, like 70s and before. Everything was just about going back or forward in time, and not just like fragmented time, like warping like the present, and like it's happening simultaneously and parallel and intersecting, and just playing with these puzzle pieces or moving time around in ways to tell story, which is super interesting, which is what David Lynch has always done. Almost every movie he's done, except probably The Straight Story and Elephant Man, sort of. Those were his more straightforward, linear movies, but Mulholland Drive, Twin Peaks, Lost Highway, it's all stuff with fragmented reality time, maybe clashing timelines and clashing decisions, or going back and redoing decisions, and being cognizant that you're able to make another choice this time, which is super interesting. I don't know. When I was actually younger, I used to think maybe I have died already, and I'm just sort of in like a redo or sort of a split continuation, like I'm dead, but maybe they like want to continue me somewhere else, like in another version of this, whatever it is. Kirsten says Cooper needs to come back to save Stefan. I don't know, maybe, see, there's a part of me where it's like, you want to like Stefan, but maybe Stefan is in there because he did something he shouldn't have. Maybe he did murder people, depending on what choices you make. Or he has sort of a happy ending, and his only respite is sort of dying in that reality, I think. And then where does he go from there? I don't know. Wow, we've been going 40 minutes already. So unless anybody has questions, I know it's Saturday afternoon. I didn't expect too many people to pop in, but thank you guys for tuning in, Wilton, Kirsten, and whoever else is watching. I appreciate it. I would love to do sort of more videos talking about these kinds of things. But if anybody has any questions now, please ask them in the chat. And if you're watching afterward, feel free to put your questions in the chat there too, or the comments section. This was a lot of fun. I can't wait to see what else sort of that group comes up with. I read something today that they are doing a full season still, or whatever a full season means to them, 3 or 4 episodes, 5 episodes. So that's cool. This was just sort of their little experiment for now that I think went over really well and seems to be pretty successful because a ton of people are talking about it. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for contributing. I really appreciate it. I hope everybody has a really good New Year's if I don't see you before then. And if you're watching this after New Year, then I hope you're having a good one so far. Again, thank you guys. I'm going to sign off now. This was exciting. Keep the conversation going. And I shall see you guys very soon. See you later.